Darius Blackwell was 38 years old when his wife poured wine on him in front of 200 people at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. She called him an embarrassment, laughed while he stood there, soaked and humiliated, at what she thought was her career-defining moment, a $500 million partnership deal she'd spent 8 months negotiating. What Gabrielle didn't know was that the company she was signing with, Darius, owned it. All of it. He'd built an $8.2 billion tech empire in complete silence, while she dismissed him as a failed consultant who worked from home in sweatpants. For months, she'd been stealing from him, cheating on him, planning to divorce him the moment her promotion came through. She thought he was dead weight, thought he'd never amount to anything. She had no idea that every document she signed, every negotiation she celebrated, she was dealing with her own husband's company. And standing there, wine dripping down his shirt, Darius made a decision that would cost her everything. What happened next would destroy her career, expose her betrayal, and leave her with nothing. But in that moment, she was still smiling, still had no idea what was coming. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from, and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Darius Blackwell's home office in Baldwin Hills. His fingers moved across the keyboard, responding to encrypted messages from his executive team at Vance Global Technologies. The quarterly reports showed $2.1 billion in revenue, another record-breaking period. Dressed in comfortable gray sweatpants and a black t-shirt, Darius took a sip of his coffee as multiple screens displayed complex data streams and security protocols. The sound of heels clicking against hardwood made him look up. Gabrielle strode past his office doorway, a vision in a tailored navy suit and pearl earrings. Her dark hair was perfectly styled, makeup flawless. She barely glanced his way. Still in pajamas. Must be nice not having real deadlines, she said, her tone dripping with condescension. Without waiting for a response or offering their once-routine goodbye kiss, she disappeared down the hallway. The front door opened and closed moments later. Darius stared at the empty doorway, remembering how different things used to be. 7 years ago, when they first married, Gabrielle would bring him coffee in the morning, massage his shoulders while he worked, and genuinely ask about his projects. Back then, she'd been proud of his decision to strike out on his own, calling him her brilliant entrepreneur. He turned back to his screens, opening a secure video channel. 5 faces appeared, his top executives at Vance Global Technologies. None of them knew they were speaking directly to the company's owner and CEO. To them, he was just the mysterious founder who operated through carefully structured proxies. The Asian market expansion is proceeding ahead of schedule, his CFO reported. We're looking at a potential acquisition target in Singapore, valued at $400 million. Darius leaned forward, analyzing the data. Run a full security audit first. I want to see their encryption protocols before we proceed. His team nodded, taking notes. To the outside world, he was just another tech consultant working from home. In reality, he'd built an $8.2 billion empire over 12 years, revolutionizing cloud security infrastructure while maintaining complete anonymity. After the call ended, his phone buzzed. Terry Vaughn's name appeared on the screen. "How's my favorite secret billionaire?" Terry's familiar voice brought a smile to Darius's face. "Managing. How's the legal world treating you?" "Same old corporate drama." "Hey, did you see the Morrison and Hayes press release about some big tech partnership they're chasing?" "Haven't had a chance to look," Darius replied, thinking of how Gabrielle had been working late almost every night lately, citing a major deal in the works. "Just thought you might be interested, given Gabrielle's involvement," Terry said carefully. "You doing okay? You seem quieter than usual." Darius sighed, grateful for his friend's perception. Since college, Terry had been the one person who knew everything about Vance Global, about the shell corporations, about his desire to avoid the spotlight that had destroyed so many tech CEOs he'd observed. "She's different lately, Terry. Distant, critical. Everything I do seems to irritate her. The woman's blessed with a secret billionaire husband who treats her like gold, and she's complaining. Maybe the pressure at work is getting to her." "Maybe," Darius said, but something felt off. He remembered this morning's dismissive comment, just the latest in a growing pattern of subtle digs about his work, his clothes, his choice to operate from home. The day passed in a blur of encrypted communications, strategic decisions, and code reviews. By evening, Darius heard Gabrielle return home unusually early. The sound of the shower started upstairs. He walked into their bedroom, planning to change for dinner, when a phone buzzed on the nightstand. Gabrielle's screen lit up with a message preview from JM. "Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you in that dress I bought." Darius froze, his hand hovering instinctively over the phone before pulling back. The shower continued running as more messages appeared, each preview cutting deeper than the last. The water shut off. Moments later, Gabrielle emerged wrapped in a towel, her skin flushed from the hot water. She moved quickly to the nightstand, snatching up the phone. Her eyes darted to Darius, noting his expression. "What?" she asked defensively, clutching the phone to her chest. "Nothing," Darius replied quietly, his voice steady despite the knot forming in his stomach. She gave him a tight smile and disappeared into their walk-in closet. Darius sat heavily on the edge of the bed, his mind racing through months of late nights at the office, canceled dinners, cold shoulders, and cutting remarks. Each memory took on new meaning, pieces of a puzzle he hadn't wanted to see falling into place. Something was very wrong. Friday morning brought no relief from the gnawing suspicion that had taken root in Darius's mind. The text messages from JM played on repeat in his thoughts, making it impossible to focus on the string of urgent emails from his executive team. He stared blankly at his computer screen, the encrypted communications from Vance Global's leadership blurring together. A security breach in their European servers demanded his attention, but his thoughts kept drifting to Gabrielle. The weekend unfolded like a surveillance operation, with Darius quietly observing patterns he'd been too trusting to notice before. Gabrielle's phone remained perpetually face down, whether on the kitchen counter or beside her at dinner. Every time it buzzed, she'd snatch it up and leave the room, her voice dropping to whispers behind closed doors. Saturday afternoon, she emerged from their walk-in closet wearing a new dress he'd never seen. Deep red, clearly expensive, the price tag hastily removed and stuffed in the trash. When he casually asked about it, her response came too quickly. "Oh, this old thing. I've had it forever." That evening, she dressed carefully, applying extra layers of makeup. "Client dinner," she explained, avoiding his eyes. "Don't wait up." She returned well past midnight, her perfume mixed with unfamiliar scents. Sunday brought more of the same. Gabrielle spent hours preparing presentations, her laptop screen angled away from him whenever he passed by. Another emergency client meeting took her out at 7 p.m. When she finally returned at 11 p.m., her carefully applied lipstick was smudged at the corners. Traffic was terrible, she offered without prompting, heading straight for the shower. Darius maintained his composure, but internally, his analytical mind catalogued every detail, every inconsistency. The woman who once shared every detail of her day now spoke in vague generalities and deflection. Monday morning, after Gabrielle left for work, Darius made a call. Terry had mentioned a private investigator months ago, someone discreet, professional, experienced in corporate matters. Within an hour, Darius sat across from James Chen in a quiet coffee shop downtown. "I need clarity, not court evidence," Darius explained, sliding an envelope containing photos of Gabrielle and her schedule across the table. "I need to know if I'm paranoid or justified." Chen nodded, his expression neutral. Sometimes paranoia is just good instinct wearing a scary mask. I'll have preliminary findings in a week. The next 7 days tested Darius's self-control. He maintained their normal routine, prepared meals as usual, asked about her day. But Gabrielle's behavior intensified. She stayed out later, grew snippy at simple questions, and spent hours texting with her phone angled away from him. "How's the Morrison Vance deal progressing?" he asked casually over breakfast one morning. Her head snapped up, eyes narrowing. "Since when do you care about my deals? Stick to your consulting work." The defensive edge in her voice spoke volumes. The following Monday, Chen's report arrived via encrypted email. Darius's hands trembled as he opened the first attachment. The images were crystal clear. Gabrielle and Jamal Morrison, her firm's senior partner, captured by telephoto lens, entering the Four Seasons. Intimate dinners at secluded restaurants, kissing in his Mercedes outside a boutique hotel in Beverly Hills. 4 different encounters over 2 weeks, all meticulously documented with timestamps. But it was the financial section of the report that made Darius's blood run cold. Chen had flagged suspicious banking activity. Darius pulled up their joint account statements, scanning transaction histories. The pattern emerged clearly. Systematic transfers disguised as routine expenses. 15,000 here, 8,000 there. Small enough to avoid immediate notice, but adding up to $180,000 over 6 months. Further surveillance revealed meetings with Patricia Hendricks, a prominent divorce attorney known for aggressive tactics. Photos taken through Hendricks's office window showed draft divorce filings on her desk during a consultation with Gabrielle. Each revelation hit harder than the last. This wasn't just an affair born of passion or weakness. This was calculated, strategic. Gabrielle had been methodically positioning herself for an exit while maintaining a perfect facade at home. Late that night, Darius sat alone in his home office, surrounded by the evidence of his wife's betrayal. The surveillance photos seemed to mock him from his desk. His hands shook as he shuffled through bank statements showing the slow drainage of their joint accounts. Rage and hurt warred inside him, but beneath the emotional storm, his strategic mind, the same mind that had built an $8.2 billion empire, began to activate. He wouldn't confront her yet. There were too many unknown variables, too many pieces still moving on the board. With steady fingers, he reached for his phone and dialed Terry's number. "I need you to come over tomorrow," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "And bring a bottle of bourbon. I've got something to show you." Terry arrived at 7 p.m. sharp Tuesday evening, bourbon bottle in hand and concern etched across his features. Darius led him straight to the home office, closing the door behind them. Without a word, he gestured to the array of documents and photos spread across his desk. "Jesus Christ," Terry muttered, picking up the first surveillance photo. His hands tightened on the image of Gabrielle and Jamal Morrison entering the Four Seasons. "That son of a bitch. He's married too, isn't he?" 18 years, 2 kids, Darius confirmed quietly, pouring them each 2 fingers of bourbon. Terry's face reddened as he worked through the evidence methodically. The hotel receipts, the bank statements showing systematic withdrawals, the long-lens photos of intimate dinners and stolen kisses. When he reached the surveillance notes from Patricia Hendricks's office, he slammed the folder down. "That manipulative witch!" Terry exploded, pacing the office like a caged animal. "She's been planning this for months. While you're here thinking everything's fine, she's stealing your money and spreading her legs for that." "Terry?" Darius's voice was soft but firm. "No, let me finish. She's a goddamn snake, Darius. A calculating, cold-hearted—" "I know what she is." Darius remained seated, unnaturally still. "But there's more I need to know." Terry stopped pacing, studying his friend's face. "More? Brother? What else do you need? You've got the affair, the theft, the divorce prep. I need to hear her truth." Darius took a slow sip of bourbon. Not just the affair or the money. I need to know what she really thinks of me, who she tells her friends I am when I'm not around. Terry sank into the chair across from Darius, concern deepening. You sure about that? Sometimes, knowing everything just twists the knife. I'm sure. Darius pulled up California recording laws on his laptop. I have ownership interest in her car. It's legal to record with one-party consent. I just need to know if you can get me something small, voice-activated. Terry rubbed his face. Yeah, I know a guy. Private investigator equipment, totally clean. I can have it tomorrow morning. He studied Darius carefully. You're scary calm about all this. Am I? Darius smiled faintly. Maybe I'm just tired of living someone else's version of my life. The next morning, while Gabrielle attended her weekly breakfast meeting with the Morrison and Hayes executive team, Darius installed the small recording device under her car's dashboard. It would activate with motion and voices, storing everything on a secure digital card. That evening, Gabrielle announced she was meeting her friend Vanessa for drinks. Darius nodded pleasantly, said he'd handle dinner cleanup. She barely glanced at him as she left. Thursday morning, after she departed for work, Darius retrieved the recording device with trembling hands. He sat in his office, headphones on, and pressed play. God, I needed this wine. Gabrielle's voice came through clearly. Work is insane with this deal. Still on track for the VP promotion? Vanessa asked. Once we close Morrison Vance? Absolutely. Then I can finally dump the dead weight. Darius! Vanessa sounded surprised. I thought things were okay. Gabrielle's laugh was cruel. Okay? Please. He has no ambition, no drive. I've completely outgrown him. You should see Jamal. Now that's a real man. Powerful, connected, wealthy in ways that actually matter. But Darius seems sweet. Sweet doesn't get you into the right circles, Van. Sweet doesn't close half-billion-dollar deals. I married potential, but he wasted it. He's content being mediocre, working from home in his sweatpants, calling himself a tech consultant, like that's something to be proud of. Each word hit Darius like physical blows, but he forced himself to keep listening. Don't you feel guilty? Vanessa asked. About the affair? Gabrielle's laughter turned sharp. Guilty? For what? Choosing myself? He's had years to become something. This is on him. A pause. God, you should see how he dresses for firm events when I force him to come. It's embarrassing. Jamal knows how to command attention. People respect him. Darius just fades into the wallpaper. The conversation continued, each revelation more cutting than the last. Gabrielle mocked his quiet nature, his preference for privacy, the way he listened more than he spoke. She detailed intimate moments with Jamal, laughing about plans to introduce him properly once the divorce was final. Darius listened to the recording 3 times. Each playback crystallized something inside him, transforming hurt into hardened resolve. The woman he'd loved, trusted, built a life with. She'd never really known him at all. Never valued who he was beneath the careful disguise he'd constructed. Never deserved the man who had given her everything while asking nothing in return. Darkness fell as the final playback ended. His phone lit up with Gabrielle's call. Hey, honey, I've got another client dinner tonight. Don't wait up? No problem, Darius replied pleasantly. I'll save you leftovers. Love you. She mumbled something non-committal and hung up. Darius sat in the darkness, staring at his reflection in the window. The pain was still there, but it was changing shape, becoming something else entirely. Something like resolve. Friday evening settled over Baldwin Hills as Terry's Tesla pulled into Darius's driveway. The sun had already dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the manicured lawn. Inside, Darius led his friend straight to the home office, the room that had become their war room over the past weeks. The leather chairs creaked as they sat, and Darius pulled out the bourbon bottle they'd started Tuesday. He poured 2 generous measures, his movements deliberate and controlled. She keeps talking about this deal, Darius began, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. The Morrison-Vance deal. It's all I hear about lately, when she bothers to speak to me at all. Says it's her ticket to VP, her crowning achievement. He looked up at Terry. What do you know about it? Terry reached for his tablet, curiosity flickering across his features. Let me pull up the press release. It's been making waves in corporate circles. His fingers moved across the screen, finding the announcement. Clearing his throat, Terry read aloud. Morrison and Hayes announces landmark partnership with Vance Global Technologies. 500 Matters, 5-year contract for integrated cloud security solutions. He paused, glancing at Darius, whose face remained impassive. Lead negotiators Gabriel Blackwell and senior partner Jamal Morrison have spent 8 months crafting this historic agreement, positioned to be one of the largest tech corporate partnerships of the year. Signing ceremony scheduled for 3 weeks. Beverly Wilshire Hotel. The room fell silent. The soft hum of the air conditioning seemed deafening in the stillness. Terry's eyes widened as realization dawned. He stared at his friend, whose face had gone completely still, like carved marble. Darius, Vance Global is mine, Darius completed quietly. It's one of my primary subsidiaries. Has been for 9 years. Terry set his tablet down with trembling hands. Holy shit. The words came out as a whisper. The magnitude of the situation expanded between them like a physical presence. Gabrielle had spent 8 months working on a deal with her husband's company without having the slightest clue. She'd been celebrating, strategizing, building her entire career trajectory on a contract with Darius's firm. She'd been sleeping with her co-negotiator while unknowingly dealing with her husband's company. A shocked, disbelieving laugh erupted from Terry. He shook his head, running his hands through his hair. This is beyond ironic. This is cosmic justice. But Darius wasn't laughing. His eyes had taken on that calculating look Terry recognized from their college days, when Darius would solve complex coding problems while others slept. He turned to his computer, pulling up internal documents. Yes, he murmured, scrolling through files. Morrison and Hayes made the initial approach last year. My executive team handled everything through the usual proxies. I approved every stage of the negotiation. He sat back, understanding flooding his features. I never connected it, because she only ever said Morrison-Vance at home. With 6 companies using similar naming structures, it didn't register. What are you going to do? Terry asked, leaning forward. Darius took a measured sip of bourbon. I'm going to let it play out. His voice was eerily calm. 2 weeks ago, she invited me to the signing ceremony, said I should finally see what real success looks like. Her exact words. His fingers tightened slightly on the glass. I'm going to go. I'm going to watch her celebrate. And then, when the time is right, I'll show her exactly who she married. Terry studied his friend carefully. Are you sure that's the way you want to handle this? We could stop it now, expose everything immediately. Darius's expression turned cold, resolved. The last traces of the trusting husband vanished, replaced by the strategic genius who'd built an empire from nothing. She wanted to see me humiliated. She wanted to prove I'm beneath her. Instead, she's going to learn she's been negotiating with me all along. And I hold every card. Terry raised his glass, a grim smile spreading across his face. To justice. Their glasses clinked in the quiet office, the sound sharp and final. As they drank, Darius's mind was already moving, calculating, positioning pieces on an invisible board. The woman who thought she'd married a simple tech consultant was about to discover just how badly she'd underestimated her husband. Darius stood before his closet on Wednesday morning, sunlight streaming through the bedroom windows. His fingers moved deliberately through his suits, selecting a modest charcoal gray ensemble with a crisp white shirt. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed wealth or power. Just another supportive husband attending his wife's big moment. His phone buzzed with Gabrielle's message. Beverly Wilshire Hotel, Grand Ballroom. 2 p.m. sharp. Try to arrive on time and look presentable. This is important for my career. He adjusted his navy blue tie in the mirror. Movements precise and controlled. The man staring back at him looked composed, unremarkable even, perfect. Inside, his stomach churned with anticipation, but his hands remained steady. Years of high-stakes business dealings had taught him how to compartmentalize emotion. The drive to Beverly Hills was smooth, traffic surprisingly light. Darius parked his modest Audi among the sea of luxury vehicles, Maseratis, Bentleys, the status symbols Gabrielle so desperately coveted. He checked his watch. 1:45 p.m. Early, as always. The Beverly Wilshire's Grand Ballroom took his breath away, despite having attended countless similar events. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over elaborate floral arrangements. Display screens showcased the Morrison & Hayes and Vance Global Technologies logos side by side. Press photographers clustered near the podium, adjusting equipment. Already, nearly 200 guests filled the space. Corporate executives, industry leaders, legal teams, all dressed impeccably and networking with practiced ease. Darius accepted a glass of water from a passing server and observed quietly. He spotted his own executives, men and women who'd never met him in person, who knew him only as the reclusive owner who communicated through careful channels. They looked sharp, professional, exactly as he'd trained them to be. Then he saw Gabrielle. She was radiant in a tailored red dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Her dark hair fell in perfect waves, jewelry catching the light as she moved from group to group, laughing and charming. Power practically radiated from her. This was her element, where she felt most alive. Darius approached during a brief lull between her conversations. "The room looks beautiful," he offered quietly. Gabrielle barely glanced his way. "You made it," she said, tone dismissive. Before he could respond, she turned back to a cluster of executives launching into animated discussion about market projections. She didn't bother introducing him. The ceremony began promptly at 2:30. Morrison & Hayes leadership delivered polished speeches about innovation and partnership. The Vance Global representatives spoke about technological evolution and market dominance, words Darius had approved himself through proxy channels. When Gabrielle and Jamal were called to the podium, applause filled the room. Jamal stood slightly behind her, his hand hovering near her lower back, in a gesture too intimate for mere colleagues. If anyone else noticed, they didn't show it. Gabrielle's speech was masterful. She spoke about vision, about dedication, about breaking barriers in the tech industry. Her voice carried perfectly, commanding attention. Then, as she neared her conclusion, something shifted in her expression. Her eyes found Darius in the crowd. A small, cruel smile played at her lips. "I also want to thank my husband Darius for his support," she said, pausing deliberately. "Even though he doesn't quite understand the business world I operate in, I appreciate him showing up today to see what I do." Uncomfortable laughter rippled through the crowd. Some people glanced at Darius with barely concealed pity. He kept his face neutral, shoulders straight. After the speeches, during the champagne toast, Gabrielle made her way through the crowd. As she passed Darius, her movement appeared to stumble slightly. The red wine in her glass tipped, cascading down his white shirt and gray jacket in a crimson wave. "Oops, I'm so sorry, honey," she announced, voice carrying to nearby guests. "You'll need to get that cleaned. I know you're good at laundry since you're home all day." More laughter, more stares. The wine felt cold against his skin, seeping through the expensive fabric. 200 of the industry's most influential players watched his public humiliation, orchestrated perfectly by the woman who had promised to love him forever. Darius looked at Gabrielle, taking in her barely concealed smirk, masquerading as concern. Everything about her radiated triumph. She believed she had won, had proven his insignificance on her grandest stage. "Congratulations on your deal, Gabrielle," he said quietly, voice steady and clear. "You've worked very hard for this." Then he turned and walked out of the ballroom, back straight, pace measured. Whispers followed him, but he didn't hurry. His dignity remained intact with every step. In his car, he sat for a moment, the wine-soaked fabric clinging uncomfortably to his skin. His reflection in the rearview mirror showed a transformation. Where warmth and trust had lived for years, only cold determination remained. He pulled out his phone and sent a single text to Terry. "It's time. Tomorrow, we execute." Saturday morning, sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows on the 38th floor of a sleek downtown Los Angeles high-rise. Darius stepped out of the private elevator into his executive suite, a space whose very existence Gabrielle had never discovered. The modern office featured state-of-the-art security systems, encrypted communications equipment, and a sweeping view of the city skyline. Terry Vaughn stood at the conference table alongside Sarah Chen, Vance Global's CFO, and James Martinez, head of the legal team. They'd worked together for years, part of the small circle who knew Darius's true identity. The wall-mounted screens displayed financial reports, corporate structures, and legal documents. Darius had transformed since Friday's humiliation. Gone was the wine-stained suit and quiet demeanor. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal Tom Ford ensemble that radiated authority. His posture was different, shoulders back, chin up, radiating the quiet power he usually kept hidden. "Let's begin," he said, voice carrying the weight of command that had built an empire. Sarah initiated the presentation, pulling up Vance Global's complete corporate structure. Parent company valuation currently stands at $8.2 billion, she reported. 6 subsidiary firms, CloudGuard Security Solutions, AI Infrastructure Technologies, Quantum Data Analytics, plus 3 development stage companies in emerging tech sectors. The screen filled with flowcharts showing how Darius had built the empire from scratch. It started with a revolutionary encryption algorithm he'd developed during his PhD work, technology that still formed the backbone of their security products. Through careful acquisitions and strategic development, he'd expanded methodically over 12 years. "The Shell Corporation structure has worked exactly as designed," James added, highlighting the complex web of holding companies. "Your privacy remains intact. Even our senior engineers don't know you're the founder. They think the DB signing their checks is a venture capital group." Terry nodded approvingly. "This is why you've avoided the problems that destroyed other tech CEOs. No paparazzi, no hit pieces, no toxic social media campaigns. You were brilliant to stay anonymous." "I watched too many innovators get torn apart in the press," Darius said quietly. "Their families harassed, their privacy destroyed. I wanted to build something lasting without sacrificing my peace." His voice carried a hint of bitterness. "I never imagined my wife would see that choice as weakness." Sarah pulled up Gabrielle's financial records. "We've documented systematic theft from your joint accounts totaling $180,000 over 6 months. She's been clever, varying the amounts, using multiple transfers to stay under fraud detection thresholds. But it's all there." James distributed copies of the prenuptial agreement. "She signed this 7 years ago. Barely glanced at it, actually. The protections are comprehensive. All business assets and premarital wealth are explicitly excluded from community property. Given that Vance Global was already valued at $800 million before the marriage, your position is extremely strong." Terry organized the evidence files, surveillance photos showing Gabrielle and Jamal entering hotels, financial documentation, text message logs obtained through legal channels, transcripts of recorded conversations. "The case is airtight," Terry confirmed. "Infidelity, financial fraud, theft. We can pursue criminal charges for the embezzlement if you choose, though the public humiliation might be punishment enough. Darius reviewed the recordings from Gabrielle's car. Her cruel words about his supposed mediocrity, her mockery of his work, her plans to leave once she secured her promotion. Each bitter comment strengthened his resolve. "Schedule the contract review meeting for Wednesday," he instructed. "Standard due diligence procedure. Require both Gabriel and Jamal's presence as lead negotiator. Conference Room A, main headquarters." "Already done," Sarah confirmed. Their office responded. "They'll be there at 2 p.m. The team spent hours refining every detail. By Sunday evening, the strategy was set. Darius drove home, finding Gabrielle in the kitchen scrolling through press coverage on her tablet. Her face glowed with satisfaction at headlines praising her as a rising star in tech law and dynamic force in corporate negotiations. "Look at this coverage," she exclaimed, not looking up. "The Journal called it a landmark partnership that will reshape the industry. They quoted me 3 times. "That's wonderful," Darius said warmly. "You must be proud." She finally glanced at him, no trace of remorse about Friday's wine incident. "Of course. This is what real success looks like." She returned to her tablet. "I have the final review meeting at Vance Global Headquarters on Wednesday. Just details before everything's official." "Good luck," Darius replied, heading to his home office. "I'm sure it will go perfectly." The trap was set. Monday morning's calm was broken by Darius's phone buzzing on his desk. Nicole Laurent's name appeared on the screen, Gabrielle's younger sister. They'd always gotten along well, though their contact had grown limited as Gabrielle became increasingly status-obsessed. "Darius," Nicole's voice trembled. "I need to talk to you. Can we meet today? It's about Gabrielle. Please." He heard the distress in her tone. "Of course, Nicole. Are you okay?" "Not really. I can't hold this anymore. Could we meet somewhere private?" They arranged to meet at a small coffee shop in Culver City, far from Gabrielle's usual haunts. Darius arrived early, selecting a corner table on the outdoor patio where they could speak privately. Nicole appeared looking nothing like her usual confident self. At 28, she'd always been the more grounded Laurent sister, building a solid career in hotel management without the desperate social climbing that consumed Gabrielle. Today, her eyes were red-rimmed, hands shaking as she clutched her purse. "I got you green tea," Darius said gently, pulling out a chair. "Still your favorite, right?" Nicole's face crumpled slightly at his kindness. "You always remember things like that. That's why this is so hard." She took a shuddering breath. "I love my sister, Darius, but I can't stay silent anymore. You deserve to know who she's become." Tears spilled as she described recent family gatherings where Gabrielle openly mocked Darius, laughing about her elaborate exit strategy with their cousins. She said, "Darius is so clueless. He has no idea what's coming. By the time I'm done, I'll have built my career, secured my promotion, and moved on to someone who matches my ambitions. He'll be left wondering what happened." Nicole's revelations hit like physical blows. The affair with Jamal hadn't started 7 months ago, as Darius thought. It began 14 months earlier. Gabrielle had been methodically planning her departure for over a year, maintaining their marriage solely for financial stability and appearances while positioning herself professionally. "Every time she was kind to you, every intimate moment, every promise about your future together. It was all an act," Nicole said, voice breaking. "She's been plotting this since last summer. The way she talks about you now, I don't even recognize her anymore." The betrayal cut deeper with each detail. Nicole described how Gabrielle had carefully crafted a false narrative among their social circle, telling friends that Darius was emotionally abusive and financially controlling. Complete fabrications designed to generate sympathy for when she filed for divorce. "She's already got people believing you're this horrible, oppressive husband," Nicole said, wiping her eyes. "It makes me sick. You've always been good to our family, generous with everyone. The way you helped pay for Mom's knee surgery last year, you didn't deserve any of this. The character assassination felt like the final twist of the knife. Not content with betrayal and theft, Gabriel had systematically worked to destroy his reputation. I don't know what happened to her, Nicole continued. She used to care about people, you know? Now it's only status and money. She laughed about the divorce, Darius. She actually laughed. Fresh tears spilled. I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner. Darius reached across the table, squeezing her hand. This isn't your fault, Nicole. Thank you for having the courage to tell me now. It means more than you know. After Nicole left, Darius sat alone at the table, processing this final layer of calculated cruelty. Any lingering doubt about his course of action evaporated. The woman he'd married was gone, perhaps had never truly existed. That evening, he reviewed everything one last time in his home office: the evidence files, legal strategy, plans for Wednesday's meeting. The scope of Gabriel's deception was staggering, but his response would be precise and devastating. He picked up his phone and called Atlanta. His mother Evelyn answered on the second ring, her warm voice instantly comforting. "Mom," he said quietly, "something's happened with Gabrielle. I can't explain yet, but I need you to know I'm okay. I'm handling it. I'll tell you everything soon." Evelyn was silent for a moment. Then, "Baby, I've been worried about that girl for a while now. You do what you need to do. I'm here when you're ready to talk." Her intuitive understanding and unconditional support centered him. They said goodnight, and Darius felt the last pieces lock into place. Tomorrow was Tuesday. One day remained before everything changed. Tuesday morning arrived with deceptive calm. Darius sat at their kitchen counter, watching Gabrielle flutter around the space like a hummingbird, her energy practically vibrating as she gathered her presentation materials. "Big day tomorrow," she announced, organizing folders into her leather portfolio. "Final meeting with Vance Global. Then we're completely done. VP announcement should come by end of week." Her voice held that familiar note of superiority that had become so common lately. Darius took a measured sip of his coffee, keeping his expression neutral. "I'm proud of you. You've worked hard." She paused, looking at him with what could only be described as pity, the kind reserved for simple creatures who couldn't grasp complex concepts. "Thanks. I know this world is confusing to you, but it means a lot." He just nodded, saying nothing more. The condescension in her tone would have stung weeks ago. Now, it simply reinforced the justice of what was coming. After she left for work, Darius walked through their home slowly, really seeing it for the first time in weeks. 5 years of memories lived in these walls. In the kitchen, he remembered Sunday afternoons spent cooking together, Gabrielle laughing as she tried to teach him proper knife technique. The living room held echoes of late-night conversations about their future, dreams of children, plans for growing old together. Even their bedroom, now tainted by her betrayal, had once been a sanctuary of trust and intimacy. He found himself in his office, staring at a framed photo from their wedding day. Gabrielle looked radiant in white, gazing up at him with what he'd believed was pure love. He'd been so certain then, so convinced they would build something lasting. When had it changed? Had it ever been real at all? Terry's words from their recent conversation echoed in his mind. Some people reveal their true character when they think no one's watching. Gabrielle had certainly shown hers, in cruel comments to friends, in stolen moments with Jamal, in systematic financial theft. The woman in the wedding photo was either a masterful actress or had been corrupted by ambition so gradually she'd lost herself entirely. By late afternoon, Darius drove to his private downtown office for final preparations. His executive team had everything ready for tomorrow's meeting. The boardroom was arranged precisely as he'd specified. Name placards set, documents organized, water carafes filled, Security had been briefed on protocols. His CFO had prepared detailed financial summaries showing exactly how Vance Global's success had been built. Terry would be present as legal counsel, positioned strategically at Darius's right hand. Alone in his office, Darius reviewed his talking points one last time. He wouldn't yell or lose control. That wasn't his style, and it wasn't necessary. His words would be measured, precise, devastating in their clarity. This wasn't about revenge or causing pain. It was about justice, about standing up for his own dignity, about ensuring that calculated cruelty and betrayal carried real consequences. The drive home that evening felt surreal. Gabrielle was already asleep when he arrived, her face peaceful in the dim light filtering through their bedroom window. He stood in the doorway watching her. This woman he'd loved so completely, who'd repaid that love with contempt and betrayal. Tomorrow, she would finally see him clearly, but it would be too late. He slept in the guest room, his mind cycling through the coming day's events. Around 6 a.m., he rose and showered, then dressed with deliberate care in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that cost more than Gabrielle's monthly salary. The man in the mirror looked exactly like who he'd always been beneath the casual facade. Powerful, composed, in complete control. Gabrielle left at 7:30, practically buzzing with anticipation. "Wish me luck," she called over her shoulder. "You don't need it," Darius replied truthfully, watching her walk to her car with confident steps, completely unaware of what waited at Vance Global headquarters. 30 minutes later, he got into his own car, adjusted his tie, and started the engine. In 4 hours, every lie would be exposed, every betrayal addressed. The truth would finally be spoken. At precisely 2:00 p.m., Gabrielle and Jamal stepped into the gleaming lobby of Vance Global Technologies. The 40-story building dominated the downtown Los Angeles skyline, its glass exterior reflecting the afternoon sun. Gabrielle smoothed her designer skirt suit, taking in the impressive space with its soaring ceilings and modern art installations. Different from their other offices, she whispered to Jamal, who nodded tensely. All their previous meetings had been at neutral locations or Morrison and Hayes. This felt more formal, more significant. A security officer checked their IDs, made 2 quick calls, then escorted them to a private elevator. 38th floor, executive wing, he said, using a keycard. "Someone will meet you there." The elevator rose smoothly. Gabrielle noticed Jamal's reflection in the polished doors. He was trying to project confidence, but something in his expression seemed unsettled. She understood why. This felt different from their other meetings with Vance Global's representatives. Another security officer met them on the 38th floor, leading them through a maze of elegant corridors decorated with abstract art and industry awards. They arrived at a magnificent boardroom with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Los Angeles. The space was immaculate. A massive mahogany conference table dominated the center, surrounded by high-backed leather chairs. Crystal water glasses and leather portfolios were precisely arranged at each place setting. "Please make yourselves comfortable," the officer said. "The executive team will join you shortly." Gabrielle took a seat halfway down the table, spreading out her presentation materials. Jamal paced near the windows, checking his phone repeatedly. "Quite a setup they have here," he said, trying to sound casual. "Much more impressive than their satellite offices." "Well, this is headquarters," Gabrielle replied, though something felt off. Why hadn't they come here sooner? Why all the neutral locations before? 5 minutes passed in tense silence. Then the heavy double doors opened. Gabrielle's world tilted on its axis. Darius walked in, but not her Darius, not the quiet man in sweatpants who worked from home. This Darius wore an impeccably tailored suit that probably cost more than her car. He moved with absolute authority, flanked by Terry Vaughn and a group of executives she didn't recognize. His presence filled the room, commanding attention without effort. "Darius." Her voice came out as a whisper. What? What are you doing here? He took his place at the head of the conference table, his movements deliberate and controlled. The executives arranged themselves on either side of him with practiced efficiency. "Hello, Gabrielle." "Jamal." His voice was calm, professional, the voice of someone completely in control. "Welcome to Vance Global Technologies. I'm Darius Blackwell, founder and CEO. This is my company. It's always been my company." The room spun. Gabrielle gripped the arms of her chair, trying to stay upright as her carefully constructed reality crumbled. Beside her, Jamal had gone completely still, his face a mask of dawning horror as he looked between husband and wife. Darius began methodically walking them through it, his tone remaining measured and businesslike. He outlined Vance Global's corporate structure, 6 subsidiary companies, all built from a revolutionary encryption algorithm he'd developed in graduate school. He detailed the shell companies and holding structures designed to maintain privacy, explaining how he'd grown the company from that single innovation into an $8.2 billion empire over 12 years. "Every document you've signed," he continued, "every negotiation you've conducted over the past 8 months, you've been dealing with my company. The partnership you've been celebrating, Gabrielle. You've been negotiating with your husband's firm without realizing it." Gabrielle found her voice, anger flaring through the shock. "You lied to me. You never told me about any of this." "I didn't lie." Darius cut her off, his voice turning cold for the first time. "You never asked. You assumed I was unsuccessful because I didn't fit your definition of success. You decided I was mediocre, dead weight, an embarrassment. You humiliated me publicly at my own company's signing ceremony because you thought I was beneath you." He pressed a button on a remote. Suddenly, Gabrielle's own voice filled the boardroom, words she'd spoken to Vanessa in her car weeks ago. "Darius is dead weight. He has no ambition, no drive. Jamal is everything Darius isn't. Powerful, connected, wealthy in ways that matter. I'm done playing house with a man who peaked at tech consultant." The recording continued mercilessly. Jamal shifted in his chair, unable to look at anyone as the depths of Gabrielle's cruelty became clear. She sat frozen, watching her carefully crafted world disintegrate as Darius systematically presented his evidence. Surveillance photos documenting 14 months of their affair, bank statements showing her systematic theft of $180,000 from joint accounts, text messages between her and Jamal plotting their future, drafts of divorce filings that included false claims of emotional abuse. When he finished with that, Darius turned his attention to Jamal. "Mr. Morrison, I'm sure your firm's managing partners would be interested to know their senior partner engaged in an affair with a subordinate, creating liability and ethics violations. I'm also certain they'd want to know that confidential negotiation details from our early discussions were shared with Mrs. Blackwell before she was officially assigned to this deal, violating conflict of interest policies. My legal team is sending documentation to your ethics board this afternoon." Jamal's face went ashen. His entire career imploded in that moment. Darius stood, gathering his materials with calm precision. "Vance Global Technologies has decided not to proceed with this partnership through Morrison & Hayes. We'll be engaging a different firm, one with integrity. This contract is void." Gabrielle gasped. Her VP promotion, everything she'd worked for, vanished instantly. "When you get home tonight," Darius continued, addressing her directly, "the locks will be changed. Your belongings are packed and in storage. Here's the address." He slid a card across the table. "My attorney will contact yours regarding divorce proceedings. Given documented infidelity, embezzlement, and fraud, you're entitled to nothing beyond the prenuptial agreement, which is minimal. I'll be seeking full recovery of stolen funds and pressing charges if you contest." He walked to the door, then turned back for one final statement. "You wanted to see what real success looks like, Gabrielle. Congratulations. You just lost everything while standing in it. He left. Gabrielle collapsed into her chair, harsh sobs racking her body. Jamal sat frozen beside her, staring blankly ahead, as his phone began to ring. Morrison and Hayes, managing partners, already calling. That evening, the sunset painted streaks of orange across the Los Angeles skyline as Darius arrived at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. His mother Evelyn had flown in from Atlanta that morning, taking a suite on the 20th floor for this crucial family meeting. Frank and Diane Laurent, along with their younger daughter Nicole, were already seated in the elegant living area when Darius entered. The room held a palpable tension. Evelyn, dignified in a navy dress that spoke of old-school Southern grace, sat straight-backed on the sofa. Frank Laurent's weathered postal worker's hands fidgeted in his lap, while his wife Diane maintained her usual rigid posture, though her eyes betrayed anxiety. Nicole perched on the edge of an armchair, looking between her parents and Darius with concern. "Thank you all for coming," Darius began, setting his briefcase on the coffee table. Before he could continue, there was a commotion in the hallway. "Ma'am, you're not on the guest list." A security officer's voice carried through the door. "That's my family in there." Gabrielle's voice, desperate and shrill. "I have every right." Darius walked to the door, opening it to find Gabrielle struggling against the officer's firm grip. Her makeup was smeared, her designer outfit from the afternoon meeting wrinkled and disheveled. She looked wild, unraveled. "Let her come," Darius said quietly. "Everyone should hear this together." Gabrielle stumbled into the room, freezing when she saw her family assembled. "What is this? An intervention?" She tried to laugh, but it came out brittle. "This is truth," Darius replied, returning to his briefcase. He began laying out documents on the coffee table methodically. Surveillance photos, bank statements, recorded conversations on a USB drive, divorce filings. "Mom, Dad," he addressed the Lawrence directly. "I wish we were meeting under different circumstances, but you deserve to know who your daughter has become." His voice remained steady as he walked them through everything: the 14-month affair with Jamal Morrison, the systematic theft of $180,000, the cruel recordings of her mocking him, the calculated divorce strategy. Frank Laurent seemed to age years as each revelation landed. His shoulders hunched, his face crumpled in shame. Diane's carefully maintained composure cracked. Her hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. "I don't understand," Frank said, voice breaking. "We raised you better than this, Gabrielle. We taught you about integrity, about treating people with respect." "Daddy, please," Gabrielle interrupted, tears streaming. "You don't understand. Darius lied about who he was. He pretended to be just a consultant when all along he was—" "Don't you dare!" Evelyn's voice cut through the room like steel. She stood, fixing Gabrielle with a gaze that could freeze fire. "My son didn't owe you an explanation of his wealth. He gave you his loyalty, his love, his trust. You gave him contempt and betrayal. Don't you dare blame him for your choices." Gabrielle recoiled as if slapped. She looked desperately around the room, finding no allies. Even her mother, who had always supported her ambitions, wouldn't meet her eyes. "I'm so deeply sorry, Darius," Frank said, standing with difficulty. "We failed you as family. What Gabrielle has done, there's no excuse." His voice broke completely. Nicole rose and crossed to Darius, taking his hand. "You deserved so much better than my sister gave you," she said softly. "I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner." "We should go," Diane said finally, her voice thin and strained. She gathered her purse, still not looking at Gabrielle. Frank nodded heavily, following his wife to the door. Nicole hugged Darius once more before joining them. Gabrielle stood alone in the center of the room, mascara streaking her cheeks. "Please," she whispered. "Someone. I don't have anywhere else to go." but her family walked out without turning back. Evelyn gathered her things, squeezing Darius's arm as she passed. "I'll see you for breakfast tomorrow, baby," she said. Then she too was gone. Gabrielle swayed on her feet, completely alone. The woman who had wielded such cruel power just hours ago now looked small, broken. "Darius," she started. "Security will escort you out," he said quietly. "Don't try to contact me or my mother again. It's over, Gabrielle." He left her there, sobbing in the empty hotel suite, stripped of every connection and comfort she'd taken for granted. As he rode the elevator down, Darius felt a weight lifting. Not joy at her pain, but relief at finally being free of lies. The following weeks unfolded with swift, devastating consequences. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.